Hey guys, welcome to Pawpaw Storytime. We're gonna start off with, let me back that back up. Let's rotate. Probably ought to start with that here every time, but I'll turn it around so that you guys can read it. Kindness is showing someone that they matter. There's all the grandkids. Raylan and Lena, Jace and Savea, Oliver, Maddie, Nate, Abby, Mia, and Nicholas. Alright, I'm going to turn this back around. We had a pretty good full weekend. I'm just glad we didn't have to postpone this like we had to the last 2 Sundays. But we had 3 of the granddaughters over the weekend. Friday night we had Raylan and Lena. Lena's first night with us, first overnight. She did really good. It was awesome. We all had fun. It was a good time. And then the next day for Mia's birthday celebration, we took Lena home, and Raylan and Lena got to have a little birthday sleepover for Mia, and we took them out and we had dinner and went shopping, and it was fun. Mia got to not feeling well earlier today. Otherwise, her and Raylan, we were going to do this a little earlier, and her and Raylan were going to be guest readers today. We had a book all picked out, but Mia started not feeling well, so everybody went home. Now I'm going to jump right in. We're going to start off with Giving Box, and this week we're going to read Deer in the Woods. So if you want to run out and go to your set and get the Deer in the Wood from your first Little House collection, and that one will be ready. And on our The Giving Box by Mr. Fred Rogers, we are on, I think we're on page 11, still reading from Mr. Rogers' Messages to the Parents. And this one says, it's called Growing Towards Being a Charitable Giver. Of course, in early years, children aren't able to think of a gift that would fit the interests or needs of people they're close to. It's even more complicated for children to give to people that they don't even know, or to some cause halfway around the world, when they aren't even yet familiar with their own city. I don't think it's helpful to give young children the sense that they're responsible for feeding and clothing all the poor and healing all the ills of the whole world. That's much too heavy a burden for a child. In fact, it could even be frightening for a child to think he or she might have such responsibility. Children need to know that grown-ups are in charge, and that many grown-ups are doing what they can to make this world a better place. We can, however, help children feel they have a part in being a caring neighbor. Several years ago, we heard about an 11-year-old boy in Philadelphia named Trevor, who was watching a local news program on television and saw a story about the plight of the homeless on cold winter nights in the city. When Trevor told his father he didn't think there really were people sleeping on their downtown streets, his father assured him that there were. Touched by the plight of men and women sleeping in the cold, Trevor took one of his own pillows, asked his mother for an extra blanket, and insisted that his parents drive him downtown. Soon they found a man sleeping on the sidewalk, huddled in a steel grate for warmth. Getting out of the car, the boy stooped over the man and kindly offered him the blanket and pillow. Hearing such gratitude in the man's thank you, Trevor convinced his family to return night after night, distributing blankets, coats, and food, much of which was donated by others who heard about his care for the homeless. What he and his family soon found was that as they got to know many of the homeless men and women, they themselves came away with a gift, a new respect for the homeless and for their ability to maintain their dignity in spite of their life situations. Trevor went spreading his sense of caring and respect for the homeless to many others in his community as well as in other cities. That's pretty cool. And that's what this is all about. That's why we made the Giving Box for the grandkids, and why we're reading through the Giving Box book by Mr. Rogers. It's about giving back, trying to find a way to do that stuff for all of our neighbors, not just homeless, but anybody that's having other struggles. And this book's going to give us some examples, and we're going to figure out how to do that. And that's going to be all for the Giving Box. This one's going to go back in the rotation, and we're going to get, so everybody had time to go to their collections and get the Deer in the Big Wood the first Little House book collection. And this just happens to be, out of all those sets that we bought the grandkids for Christmas, this book actually was in our set, was the only one that was missing pages. So I had to take other ones and make copies. So my book is actually half built with smaller pages that we printed off on our copier that I taped together to make the book whole, so that I can read this as all the grandkids is actually full. So, and we're going to start right off here. The Deer in the Big Wood by Laura Ingalls Wilder. It says, once upon a time a little girl named Laura lived in the big woods of Wisconsin in a little house made of logs. Laura lived in the little house with her pa, her ma, her big sister Mary, her baby sister Carrie, and their good old bulldog Jack. It was autumn, and the days were getting short and cold. A fire burned all day in the cook stove to keep the little house warm. Laura and Mary worked on their patchwork quilts in front of their fire. One night, Pa said that after supper, he would go into the big woods to look for a deer. There had been no meat in the little house since spring, and it was time for Pa to go hunting again. Uh-oh. I am missing. I guess I didn't fix this page. Well, I got a couple of sentences. I got one sentence here on this page, so if you guys are reading along, you're just going to have to read this page without me. But it says, after supper, Paul went into the big wood, and Laura and Mary went to bed. And then my page is ripped out. I thought that I'd fixed all these. I'll show you guys a picture, though. We'll turn the page and we'll keep going on. The next day, Laura and Mary waited for Pa to tell them about the deer. But Pa was busy all day chopping firewood so the little house would stay warm inside, and there was no deer meat for supper that night. After supper, Pa took Laura on his knee, while Mary sat close on her little chair. Pa said, "Now I'll tell you why we had no meat today." Last night I went into the woods and climbed up a big oak tree to watch for deer, Pa said. Soon the big round moon rose and I could see a deer with his great big horns that stood out from his head. He looked so strong and free and wild that I couldn't shoot him. I sat and looked at him until he ran off into the big wood. Then I remembered that Ma and my girls were waiting for me to bring home some meat for supper. So I made up my mind that the next time I saw a deer, I would shoot. Hard to turn the pages since I made them myself, taped together. After a long while, a mother deer and her baby fawn stepped into the moonlight. They stood there together, looking out into the trees. Their large eyes were shining and soft. I just sat there looking at them until they walked away among the shadows. Then I climbed down out of the tree and came home. Laura whispered in his ear, "I'm glad you didn't shoot them." And Mary said, "We can eat bread and butter." Pa hugged both of them together and said, "You're my good girls." Soon, Laura and Mary were tucked snugly under their covers. Pa played his fiddle softly, and Ma sat by the fireplace gently rocking and knitting. And Laura laid awake a little while, thinking how lucky they were to be safe and cozy in their little house in the big wood. It looks like that's the end. Unless I'm missing something else. Well, I'm sorry guys that I didn't catch that one page before we did this, but you guys reading along know, and the rest of you guys can probably look up that page. You know, it makes for a really good story that Paul didn't actually shoot those deer, but in real life back in those days, they had to shoot deer and different wild animals for meat so that they could survive. They had to have food to eat. They didn't have grocery stores like we do where you can just go in and buy bacon and hamburger. And then some of you guys that might be watching that live in the country, you might have dads or uncles or brothers that go hunting. So you guys already know. It was a way of life. It's where we get meat from. We're going to close up with the Little House Book of Wisdom. And this week it says, have confidence in yourself. That's the only way to make other folks have confidence in you from these happy golden years. On the page. And this week we're going to do one of the Little Talk cards. Pull it out. And this category this week is random. And it says, what would you take with you to a desert island? What would you take with you to a desert island? Think about that for a minute. Ask anybody that's watching can talk about that together. Let's stick those back over here. We're going to wrap this up. We're going to, actually, before we turn that around, take them glasses off. I love you guys for being exactly who you're supposed to be, and you're the only one that gets to decide that. And remember that our minds, just like our books, work better when they're open. Now we'll turn around and we'll zoom in here. The weekend song. I'll be back when the week is new. And I'll bring more ideas for you. And you'll have things you'll want to do. And I will too. I'll think of you when I'm not here, because thinking of people makes them seem near. The friends who know you love you cheerfully, and I do too. That's it, guys. Have a good week. Love you.